Guys, it's Cassandra from Williams from EI360. Today we're going to talk about really these soft skills, developing soft skills in elementary education. So today I'm going to be fluid. I'm going to be fluid with elementary education teachers, students, as well as instructional coaches. This is primarily for instructional coaches, but we want to make sure that soft skills are implemented. So we're weaving soft skills into every day. And it matters because academic knowledge, it's hard to weave that in without the success of real world support with information with context, and really being able to relieve teacher stress, pressure, and there's so many challenges in the classroom today. So I kind of put it all together. I hope you enjoy it. So as instructional coaches, we are starting to onboard new teachers. And so many times we assume that they have the soft skills necessary. But what I'm seeing is sometimes they are struggling with soft skills and implementing these soft skills in the classroom as well. And so really thinking about soft skills in terms of communication, teamwork, adaptability, especially that we have a lot of resource in our classrooms really helping to support us, critical thinking, and what even does that look like? Being able to think of what is our long-term success, what are our goals as teachers, and then another thing that we have to think about is how does this relate to tech, looking at kind of our jobs and how we're using technology to support our students, and then looking at our students independently and figuring out which soft skills do you need to support your struggling students the most. So this brings me to, of course, the benefits. What are the benefits? Teachers grow. When coaches are continuously modeling that, when students are learning empathy, teachers create trust as well as coaches and teachers' relationship begin to flourish, really understand student development and what it takes to really implement this long-term success in academic and resilience and growth throughout these academic units. And then the long-term impact, of course, better classroom management for our teachers, behavior for students, understand that SEL component piece for individual students, and understanding this career trajectory and how it is changing in the moment, and what do we need to do to kind of continue up on research, and what does the future career look like for education? Because right now we're in the middle of that, in the middle of looking at teaching from the past, teaching from the present, and then what does teaching look like in the future with AI? Now, I know you may think that, Cassandra, this is overwhelming. These are all the pieces, right? These are not only SEL for students, but it's supporting our teachers and it's coaches needing to kind of retool. I kind of say these are the trends. This is kind of what's happening now in 2025. You're getting this kind of integrated skill development. So soft skills are not just taught separately with social emotional learning. Soft skills are now taught into the academic unit. So soft skills are a part of math, science, even looking at literacy and what does that mean. We have our data-informed coaching where we're looking at, both our assessment scores that we have provided and our SEL rubrics and what can we do to kind of help students grow on that trajectory. We're also looking at technology and what does that mean for our students as well. So how do we foster ongoing collaboration, support with student responsibility, as well as teacher responsibility? And then last but not least, how do we involve the families? What are we doing to involve the communities in this transformation in education? Because we know that communities sometimes inform classroom lessons. And I say these are all happening right now. Which trends do you feel kind of are most urgent right now in the classroom? So here are some ideas that I have when we're talking about best practices. Really, they're not ideas. These are things that we should be doing now. We should dive into relationship change, right? What is the relationship? How can we partner ourselves with our teachers? How does modeling show up? So once we're building relationship, what does that non-judgmental feedback look like? How are our teachers feeling safe in the spaces, being that a lot of them are new? A lot of them are trying to navigate what schooling looks like now. And even a lot of our veterans are kind of struggling with what schooling looks like right now. So being able for you to take those soft skills and kind of implement it into your coaching. Then is the next piece is kind of how do we model and facilitate what that looks like. And so we're up there, we're showing them, we are working in the classrooms, we're co-teaching, we're demonstrating what soft skills look like in the academic lens. And then last piece, how do we kind of leverage our data? So are we looking at social emotional learning rubric? Are we kind of tying that into classroom checklists, and what are we doing to kind of track growth. Now, right now in the classroom, we are tracking growth individually, right? We say, okay, we got the second step lessons. Let's see, we did this, check, 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 check. Okay, now we're doing this academic unit in math. We did this, check, 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 check. So now it's what does it look like to kind of infuse both academic and social emotional learning with rubrics and checklists to make sure our students are on the up and up. So really thinking about what we are doing as instructional coaches and how that looks like. We are ongoing. We are constantly reflecting. And so that's that metacognition, reflecting out loud in front of teachers, reflecting out loud in front of students for our teachers. And how do we model that? And how do we encourage video coaching, video lessons to kind of set some of these goals or look and reflect? And that's a big part of my program, is really thinking about how do we look at the lessons? How do we reflect on some of these soft skills, reflect on the goals that we want to make sure we have academically. And then we have to continuously stay abreast of what is going on. The continuous learning, continuous growth, what are the trends? How are we updating our teachers on the latest articles that's happening in schools? What are the webinars that we need to attend, or we need to kind of pull from some of our universities, the MITs, to kind of pull down to show and then provide snippets of content for our teachers? And then what is the real world discussions that we are having on this is happening in my classroom? Here are some things that I want to kind of find some research on. What I'm noticing is in a lot of our professional developments, we are not really diving deep into these discussions or pulling new research or finding out what is working globally, or really looking at some of our top 10 institution and top 10 experts on these content areas and infusing it into our school. We're kind of perpetuating what is happening in the school. And sometimes I believe it's our schools that are trying to take the cheap way out and not do professional development, which kind of hurts sometimes the school, because we're learning kind of from each other and we're, discussing the things that's happening in our small space without continuous growth. The last piece is really looking at the real world applications and how are we partnering with our community professionals, our professors, our academic units, to show how things need to transform with our current practices in education to connect to the skills of our future careers. And I think that's the kind of caveat. We haven't changed. We are still this idea of putting students on this trajectory to become this. And so how we leverage our soft skills to have students kind of redefine the future, redefine where they see themselves in the future, besides for this one trajectory. And then thinking of your coaching relationship with our teachers and how valuable that is, and how even looking at their career trajectory, because teaching is changing by the minute. So being able to kind of model some of these soft skills and model some of these ideas of what you are seeing as a coach in academia and how schools are changing globally. So here's some practices I think that sometimes we're missing. They were practices, I want to say pre-COVID, but with our new teachers, it's, I want to say, not less of, but these are some staples that I would like to see more of. So of course, conversations and, bringing from the community to the classroom, from the talking stick to the morning meeting, right? These social emotional skills that have standards with rubrics, being able to communicate effectively, really thinking about vocabulary. What are we doing to build that emotional vocabulary? Either there's check-ins, right? Now we're getting to restorative justice. There's these cards, these charts that kind of go on with daily emotions and how's our body feeling during this specific academic unit. What are some of our triggers in the classroom that we are starting to see? How do we digest some of these rigorous content areas and be able to make it much more digestible for our students? And then it's the collaborative storytelling, right? The class books that honor every student's contribution in society. And thinking of what are we doing to kind of embed these ideas into our literacy blocks and not just making them kind of one more thing, extra work. Okay, like now it's SEL time, now it's, math time, now it's literacy time. What do we need to do to kind of incorporate and be very intentional about incorporating some of these skills in our academic units? When we talk about 3 to 6, grades 3rd through 6th grade, we talk about some of these strategies, the role playing based on current context that's happening in the school. One of the things I help the teacher implement is like some of the common questions that are asked during that grade level, asking a question and picking from the question, finding the answer as a collective whole, as a class, or using social studies or what's happening in the world to kind of talk about different perspectives of what's happening at the home, what's happening globally, what's happening locally, and how do we get insight from other people's perspectives that are not in the United States. Thinking about what are our artifacts collection. So now we're digging into research, small group projects, thinking of decision-making skills, presenting, and then, of course, the powerful peer-led learning, right? When students learn from others, it rebuilds that student sense of confident and competency, thinking about student leadership and even empathy, listening to other students. And so with 3rd through 6th, I see, even though these 3 skills are pretty much staples in education, I kind of see it dwindling. So, what do we need to do to kind of build these strategies within our units? So when I say this timeline, this is not set in stone, but I think as teachers, we need to reflect. As coaches, we need to kind of observe and kind of see kind of where we're at to see what we need to do next. So I'm always big on kind of every time when you want to make some type of change, we kind of observe what's going on in the classroom, kind of assess maybe the students, the learning, and then we're working with teachers to kind of develop a baseline to be able to gather data to understand where we are headed, but we need to know, of course, where we are now. And then the planning, the thinking of what are the modules need to be, what are you noticing to where, okay, we definitely need to include this module. What are the lessons that we can model with our teachers to co-support them as well. And then thinking about how do we start implementing and then how do we start supporting. So when teachers are doing, maybe we're jumping in, we are kind of helping them with problem solving, or as a whole, we may observe a lesson and realize, ooh, that was a gap. We need to make sure we fill the gap. And so we go back with the teacher and kind of role play what that looks like in the future. And last but not least, thinking about reflection. Always reflect on anything you do, anything you try, and then we refine it, we tweak it. And so figure out what that looks like in the near future. And always know, relationships before anything. Teachers need to feel that they trust you. They need to be kind of willing to jump off the deep end with you. And thinking about integration and not separation kind of is what kind of fuels that push for academics. And then last but not least, thinking about what does our rubric look like and our progress tracking, which is the measurable results that need to happen when you're implementing something like this. Okay, I don't need to say it. I think I said it already. The key big takeaways is relationships first, build those trust with your teachers, to make sure that you can do both and integrate. We want to combine the two, academics plus the social emotional learning. And then 3, find a baseline. We need to make it measurable. We have to find a way to track success. I hope these tips are helpful. If you need more information, DM me for more. Talk to you later. Bye.